Hello everybody, my name is Dan Money, Senior Physiologist and Clinic Manager for Nuffield Health. I'm here to talk to you today about winter wellbeing, subject that's obviously pretty relevant at this time of year as we're heading into the winter months, those cold dark mornings and well cold dark evenings, to be honest, potentially. So this webinar, which is going to last around 20 to 25 minutes, is hopefully going to cover some useful hints and tips as to how you can approach your lifestyle factors, particularly at the current time of year, to help you promote good health, well-being, avoid winter bugs, and generally keep well. First of all, we're going to look at some factors that tend to affect winter well-being. All of the factors you can see on the screen there can lead to feelings of tiredness, lack of motivation to exercise, comfort eating, and more frequent illnesses. Hopefully, as I say, this presentation will provide you with some tools to help combat these winter pressures and therefore help promote your well-being through to spring. Seasonal affective disorders, or SAD as it's sometimes called, I'm sure a lot of you will have heard of. It's a type of depression that can come and go in a seasonal pattern. According to the NHS website, symptoms include persistent low mood, loss of pleasure or interest in normal activities, irritability, feelings of despair, guilt, lethargy, sleeping longer than normal, and potentially craving carbohydrate or high energy foods. The term was originally coined by Dr. Norman Rosenthal, who found that people who are affected by lack of daylight can benefit from light sources such as light boxes that a few minutes even of this light, which is at the right frequency, the same frequency as natural sunlight each morning, did help to elevate their mood and energy. So yeah, if you're suffering from particularly symptoms of this kind of effect that seem quite severe, then it can be worth or important indeed to have a word with your doctor. I think a lot of us may experience bits of these symptoms or smaller influences on our health and well-being from this, which you might refer to as the winter blues. But yeah, if you do have concerns, or particularly if you're someone who does have a mental illness and it's becoming very exacerbated or problematic due to the winter conditions, then yes, do have a chat to your GP, and they may be able to carry out psychological assessments that will help to check your mental health is doing okay, or provide you with any treatments necessary. This is something you could also, of course, speak to your remote GP, which you can access through your Vodafone benefits, virtual GP services. So looking at the effects of the grey days on the brain and body, the internal body clock, which we know as our circadian rhythm, is controlled by a part of the brain known as the hypothalamus, or the suprachiasmatic nuclei, SCN for short. But the external factors like light, darkness, noise, food and stimulants like caffeine can also have an impact. The shorter days mean that our body produces more melatonin, which is the hormone that is produced due to darkness, and that can lead to a dip in serotonin and lower mood. The lack of sunlight can also affect our ability to synthesize vitamin D, which affects metabolic functions and skeletal health. So that's the health of your bones, which can be particularly a problem for older people, sometimes particularly females, in the winter months. I'll come on a little bit later to food sources and vitamin D and whether it's maybe beneficial to look at supplements for that as well, particularly in the winter. We don't get a lot of sunshine in the UK. So how can we combat the lack of light? Well, exercising is an important thing to consider. That's very much been proven to help increase the availability of a neurotransmitter called tryptophan, which has the ability to boost serotonin levels in the brain. Serotonin, if you remember, being our happy hormone or mood boosting hormone. Tryptophan is an essential amino acid. It's found in proteins. Essential means that we must get it from our diet. We can't just produce that in our body ourselves. tryptophan is converted within the body, and that helps to produce serotonin and melatonin. And the research has shown that low levels of tryptophan can contribute towards mood disorders like potentially anxiety and depression. And therefore, if you can boost the amount of tryptophan through your diet, this could help to combat the winter blues or seasonal affect disorder. So some examples of food you can see on the slide here that can be a good source of tryptophan include poultry meats like turkey, chicken, eggs, cottage cheese, fish and beans. Vitamin D again mentioned on here. Food sources there can include oily fish, egg yolks and fortified cereals. Really, it's quite hard to get all the vitamin D you need just from food. You may find that you would need to eat a phenomenal amount of those foods to get all your vitamin D. So again, supplementation is often recommended. In fact, Public Health England do recommend that most people do take a vitamin D supplement in the winter months. So you could really say that's from really October through to February. Going to bed and waking up at the same time, that's another important thing to help synchronise or maintain a regular circadian rhythm. That can help with the regulation of the sleep and waking hormones. So that's again your melatonin that helps you get to sleep, and your hormones like cortisol that help you be awake and alert. And that can again help with the management of hormonal related disorders, including SAD. So staying active, yes, this is obviously something that's potentially very beneficial throughout the year, but particularly perhaps in the winter months, as staying active can help to stimulate the production of white blood cells, particularly the killer T cells, which attack bacteria and form a vital part of our immune system. Exercise has also been shown to help boost the levels of those mood boosting hormones like serotonin. So it's quite normal, I think, for a lot of people to experience that their motivation to perhaps keep their regular running or cycling regime, outdoor exercising, even when it's walking the dog, sometimes that gets pushed down the order of desirability of things to do later on in the day, on a winter's day when the weather's cold, wet and dark. I'd encourage you though to still get out and do that if you possibly can, keeping yourself obviously warm and wrapped up. Exercise does help, as I say, to stimulate cells that form a system. It's very important though to consider that we shouldn't overload our body's system with repetitive, sort of very high intensity exercise sessions, as this can perhaps, particularly on top of a lifestyle that's already perhaps not very well balanced in terms of stress and recovery, perhaps tend towards tipping people a bit into overdoing it, overtraining, excessive levels of stress hormones within the body, which can then tend to negatively impact on the immune system. So really aiming for a balance of lighter intensity activities, particularly in the evening before winding down to go to bed, something like a relaxing yoga class, or maybe even something that's not really exercise focused, like a mindfulness session, keeping you more vigorous, 7 out of 10 plus intensity type exercise for earlier in the evening at the latest, really, and mixing in obviously the more moderate to light activities like jogging or brisk walking. Oh, just on that slide before I move on from it, I did mention some other options there. Of course, now, particularly in current times, there's a vast array of home workout options, such as those available on YouTube, indoor circuit training classes, yoga classes, indoor cycling based workouts. Obviously they can become very sophisticated these days, potentially quite expensive, with devoted sort of indoor bikes hooked up to the internet, etc. But a simple turbo trainer can be quite inexpensive. You can use your outdoor bike on that, and it doesn't take up much space in the house either, so that can be a good option too. And yeah, it's still to be encouraged to get outside, do activities that burn calories, raking up the leaves in the garden, getting out for your walk, or, you know, it says on the slide, going to a running club. Again, that, you know, may be dependent on restrictions in the area where you're living at the moment. But yeah, definitely still to be encouraged. I mean, although Yes, being out in the cold for long periods, particularly breathing cold air for a prolonged period of time, it can potentially have an impact on weakening the or drying out the mucous membranes in the airways, which can increase the susceptibility to bugs and viruses, which do tend to be circulating more at this time of year. So again, keep that in moderation, but it's good to do some of it still if you can. Next up, we're looking at some slides which go into how eating well can be good for health and well-being, and I will say the tips on these slides are quite generally applicable throughout the year, but perhaps more so even at this time of year. There's a few specific things that you can look at. So I suppose a factor that a lot of people may tend to think about when we're coming towards winter is that maybe activity levels do tend to reduce a little bit, and that maybe people do tend to gravitate, particularly in the UK. There seems to be a trend of gravitating towards more carbohydrate, warming, satisfying, dense, heavier meals. Perhaps, you know, this year particularly a lack of sociable eating out type activities due to the pandemic may take the edge off of some of these effects that people experience, but which in many ways is a shame, of course, but you know, that may be of influence. It's very important, you know, to keep on top of your diet, and whilst your diet isn't going to bulletproof you against illnesses, it can certainly help to maintain your immune system working properly and help to get you back on the road to recovery if you've got a healthy diet, if you do encounter a winter bug or virus. So considering diet, again, we've talked quite a few around some of these hormones that are related to mood, energy, and avoiding deficits in those areas. We touched on foods earlier that can help to boost levels of tryptophan, which thus helps to boost serotonin levels. Generally, meals that are higher in protein alongside a good source of complex carbohydrates help with that, as it's understood that the tryptophan in foods needs carbohydrate molecules to pass from the blood into the brain and therefore to convert to the serotonin, which is what has the benefits. Fruit and veg, obviously important for promoting healthy immune function due to the vitamins, minerals and antioxidants within those. The NHS, obviously, in the UK government recommend 5 portions per day, but really the studies that was based on was more like 10 portions per day to have a significantly lower risk of cardiovascular diseases, cancers, and I'd encourage you to try and get, you know, between 5 and 10 or even a little bit more if you can. The 5 a day, though, is certainly, you know, a realistic target for most people, I feel. And again, yeah, vitamin D and the benefit that can have for bone health, immune health. Foods like yolks, red meats, fortified cereals may help you towards your vitamin D intake. Just thinking about the specific meals within the day here. Starting the day, lunchtime, and then an evening meal down here, looking at the balance of foods on the plate: fruit, vegetables, proteins, carbohydrates. As you can see, you know, in the breakfast, it's good to include some proteins, promote a slower, steadier supply of energy throughout your morning, helping you to keep your brain steadily supplied with glucose, keep your mood and concentration going, particularly if like me, you're in front of your computer screen for a long period of time. It can be quite hard to concentrate. Some examples of breakfast that will be healthy on that front and provide a good balance might include a smashed avocado on toast with some sesame seeds and chili flakes, spinach and black bean omelette, or perhaps some yogurt or porridge with berries. Lunch is an important one to think about. That's you know, a meal that shouldn't really be skipped. I think if you skip lunch, you're more likely to set yourself up for overeating later in the day, craving sugary snacks in the afternoon, and particularly if you're like me, when you're at home, down in the kitchen, you know, there's the biscuits there, and you know, it may be easier, or you're going to be less thinking about those if you have a good sustaining lunchtime meal. And try and, you know, take your time to take your lunch away from your computer, sit down where you'd normally eat in the house, and give your food a good chew. Try and digest the food properly to get the most benefit. Here's some examples of healthy lunches you could easily prepare at home during the current situation. Might be something like a chicken wrap with beans and and that sort of thing. A salmon or mackerel stir fry with some salad leaves in there, maybe a chicken and noodle soup or something along those lines. Something warming would probably be quite a good thing to look at as well, rather than cold food, I think, this time of year. And again, with the dinners, we're thinking about trying to keep some carbohydrates in there. They're important for energy, but perhaps again at this time of year, if we're not moving about, not burning quite so much energy as we might normally do at other times, it's good to think about keeping the meal balanced a little bit more towards vegetables, beans, pulses, those sorts of foods, perhaps keeping those to near 50% of the plate, winding the carbohydrates back just a little bit, maybe towards near a quarter or a third of the plate at the most. And then a healthy source of protein, whether that's from meats or vegetarian type source. Oh, and here's just some other things, general tips on keeping your immune system healthy. There's some evidence that foods that are labelled as pre or probiotics may help to keep the gut healthy, and that in turn has a big impact on immune function. The gut is very much linked to immune function. Okay, so next, moving away from nutrition and some more practical tips for reducing your risk of catching a cold. Obviously, at the moment, hand washing is something that's been really drilled home in the last 6 months or more now. The importance of that in relation to the pandemic, but again, that's also very important in relation to more common colds or bugs that are out there. It's the other common sense things that apply, as well as taking a good 20 seconds or more to wash your hands, doing all these steps you can see on the slide to make sure you cover all areas of the skin and fingertips where the bacteria and germs can lurk. Also, of course, covering your mouth when coughing, ideally using your elbow as the current device, isn't it? And then trying to keep yourself away from people who may have a cold. Again, that can be difficult if you've got children who are attending school at the moment in your house, but it can be useful therefore to keep washing your hands if you're in contact with them, or using maybe alcohol gel at home if you can do so safely. The cold viruses, they can survive on indoor surfaces for more than 7 days, but their ability to spread infection starts to decrease after 24 hours. And most of those viruses, they don't survive on your hands for long, only a few minutes, some of them, but some of them can be still infectious after an hour on your hands. So regular hand washing is the thing, really. So keeping a positive mental attitude, that's something that not only stands you in good stead for life in general, but it can also, believe it or not, help to prevent illnesses. So thinking positively releases mood boosting hormones like DHEA, and thinking negatively tends to release immune suppressing hormones or stress hormones like cortisol, which we do need, but too much of can be problematic to our health. Studies have shown that actually practicing gratitude has been a proven way to boost positivity, and a good way of practicing this is to use the 3 good things exercise on a daily basis. So this is where you write down 3 good things that happened during the day at the end of each day. You could discuss them with your family at dinner time or something like that as well. And research has shown that the people who did that in a study, just each night for 1 week, they volunteered that they were happier, reduced depressive symptoms 1 month, 3 months and 6 months later. So it's quite an impressive impact from doing that simple exercise each day. So here's some other examples of things that can affect our immune function, how it's important to take care of our management of stress and pressure. Winter, really busy time of year, especially as Christmas approaches, and it's important you give yourself enough breaks and enough sleep in order to manage stress effectively. When your brain perceives a threat, whether it's physical or emotional, you release stress chemicals into the body like cortisol, which does, if released excessively, as mentioned before, impact on immune function. Research has shown that psychological stress reduces the amount of white blood cells sometimes, and that can also impact on your body's ability to fight viruses. It's obviously inevitable that we encounter some stresses in our lives, so the trick can be to manage it a little bit better, devoting time to relaxation activities such as mindfulness apps, maybe delving into the Silver Cloud app, which is one that you have available through your Vodafone Wellbeing resources. That's a really focused app that has within it lots of self-help courses and activities you can participate in to get you thinking about ways in which you can boost different aspects or domains of your resilience to stress and pressure. Obviously, centre here is highlighted how we sleep. So yeah, thinking about the obvious factors that can help you to get a good night's sleep, the temperature in your room, so maybe adjusting the heating in your house to make sure you're not getting too cold or too warm at night, making sure that you're getting enough sleep is obviously quite important. 7 to 9 hours, the average adult sleep need. And yeah, trying to wind down effectively, like we said earlier, perhaps doing some meditation or very light exercise, trying to avoid electronic devices 30 to 60 minutes before bedtime, can all help to promote the release of melatonin, which is that sleepy hormone that helps you to get off to sleep well. And of course, limiting alcohol and caffeine, particularly in the evenings, are going to help you to be able to get off to sleep well. Studies have shown that even modest amounts of alcohol shortly before bedtime can impact on the body's ability to attain a recovery state during sleep. Obviously, that's going to impact on how fresh you feel the next day. Yep, so it's a busy time of year at the moment, particularly heading into the Christmas. I mean, again, this may be a bit different for us all this year, but just some ideas on this slide of what you can do to help keep your Christmas eating habits. I think they're particularly a little bit more healthy. How to boost your activity levels by maybe delivering some of your Christmas cards by hand throughout where you live rather than driving around. Trying to keep your alcohol intake down. There's obviously some impacts that can significant impacts from drinking heavy amounts of alcohol on immune system, weight gain, that sort of thing. Obviously this year, again, it's much less likely people are going to have a lot of Christmas parties and things to attend, so the impact of that may be that's maybe not a bad thing in terms of the impact on health and well-being. Some tips on the slide specifically here you can see there as to how you could make your Christmas dinner lower calories if you wanted to. Again, I don't think it being a bit more indulgent on one day of the year, or every so often, is a big issue really at all. So I don't think that's too much of a problem, or I wouldn't go out of your way to modify your Christmas meal excessively. But if you look at the list, actually, it's not really it's all what you would expect in a Christmas meal, to be honest. Not really compromised as such, and only 465 calories apparently. And then obviously a lot of sweets and biscuits, even things that are healthy but calorie dense like nuts can be circulating around. So yeah, just trying to keep those in moderation where possible. Not perhaps so ultra available at all times. Okay, and lastly, I just wanted to reiterate the excellent wellbeing support services available to you as a Vodafone employee. I already mentioned Silver Cloud, which is the web-based program or app that you can browse in detail topics on emotional well-being and resilience to stress and pressure. It's got some excellent self-help exercises and courses you can take on there that can really help you to boost different domains of your resilience to stress and pressure. We've got the online health screening, which is my role in this. As the physiologist, I will take you through a 30-minute module of your choice, and they range in wide different topics from heart health, diabetes, risk prevention, to resilience to stress and pressure, sleep and energy and posture. So lots of different topics to choose from in there. and you can register your interest for that on the My Choices platform. We've got the option, as I mentioned, also of a virtual GP appointment if you've got a medical concern on your mind at the moment. That's provided through Medical Solutions. We've got the Employee Assistance Programme, or EAP programme, that's available through Workplace Options, and that's available to you 24/7. A very wide array of different topics on there, ranging from financial support and assistance to emotional well-being. Lots of interesting content in there. We've got the mental health first aiders now, which are ever expanding within Vodafone, now over 240 trained. You can reach out to for support with your mental health. And of course, also the main hub really to find out more about all the wellbeing services available at Vodafone is on the workplace community, and that's where you'll find details of all these services and some other interesting health and wellbeing related content and topics, such as these webinars. Okay, well, I want to thank you very much again for taking the time to listen into this winter wellbeing webinar, and I wish you all the very best for a happy and healthy winter. Thanks, and I hope to speak to you again at another webinar soon. Bye bye.